How are you?
I'm excited to hear that there's going to be a regular comedy event in Long Street in Cape Town. How did this come about?
Long Street is one of those places where there's always so much going on, because there's a lot of foreigners that are coming into Long Street, and it's just quite a nice energy to see the different cultures mixing. But there's a lack of comedy on Long Street. So I just thought that I'd start a regular comedy event that's happening there.
We've got all these regular comedy spots in Johannesburg. I mean, well-known comedians, up-and-coming artists. What is the blend going to be at this Thursday night comedy fest?
The blend is basically going to be, it's going to be a mix of established acts and then also a lot of up-and-coming acts. Then we're also going to have some open mic spots, which will be pretty cool. So you'll basically get, you'll see some established acts. Some of the guys that do come down from Joburg, they'll also get a chance to perform there. But yeah, I mean, it's perfectly placed. I mean, Long Street is literally just 2 streets away from the biggest comedy club in South Africa, being Parliament.
You've won 2 SAFTA awards. You've had numerous accolades this year. What's been the highlight for you?
I think the highlight, was actually judging the SAFTAs this year, because we won a SAFTA last year for Best Ensemble in a TV Comedy Series for Zai News, and that was really, really exciting. But I think the process of actually being involved in the judging process for the SAFTAs was for me completely a highlight, because it was, it was recognition from people within the industry, saying, hey, we actually recognize you as a force to be reckoned with in the entertainment industry. So that was quite a highlight. And then also, I think this year was the first time I actually went up on stage to do an acceptance speech at the SAFTA. So that was pretty exciting.
In terms of kind of, having a heavyweight like yourself starting a regular comedy event, I think the really nice thing, for lack of a better description here, is that it's not a startup comedian putting an event together every Thursday. It's the fact that there is somebody with credentials in the industry that's starting this. How important is it that we make sure that this is a real credibility to it?
It's very important. I think in South Africa we need to establish a lot of institutions and sort of set things in place so that people who are starting out as comedians get the right kind of influences and have an understanding as to what really is required of them when they want to get into the industry. So, giving people a platform to perform, getting them to see how a real comedy show can be run, even if it's run at a venue like a pub or a lounge, just to see how to set up the lineup, what the mix should be, how the night should run. And it's also good for, people in South Africa and also foreigners to actually see what is actually happening at the comedy and get a taste of South African culture through humor.
Mumsy, what is it about Cape Town? As I mentioned when we started this interview, that you've got a lot of regular comedy spots in Johannesburg. Yet you have a lot of comedians residing in Cape Town, but you don't have a lot of weekly regular comedy spots. Why is it?
I think the hardest thing for Cape Town is that I was actually born in Joburg, so my career actually started in Joburg. And the thing with Joburg is that the sheer volume of people living in Johannesburg, it's much easier to maintain a regular comedy gig. So in Cape Town, in order to make sure that the comedy gig stays, we really need to get the media behind us. We need to make sure that the marketing is done right. So it's very important for a regular gig to happen. And the gigs that do happen in Cape Town, they're few and far between. We do have one dedicated comedy spot at Yomasa Comedy, which is in the waterfront. So that's a dedicated comedy club, which is really good for us. It's a very big coup for Cape Town. But we do need to establish other regular comedy gigs within Cape Town and outside areas, the northern suburbs and the southern suburbs, so that the actual comedy industry in Cape Town can actually grow and become mainstream like what it is now in Joburg.
We're talking about a weekly comedy event. Any costs related to it? People that are interested can come down to Long Street. What can they expect?
They can pretty much expect, like, I mean, Long Street itself is quite funny. The other day I was walking down Long Street and I heard a Nigerian speaking Afrikaans. That was that was a bit intense for me. So they can expect a lot of humor from people who have actually interacted with a lot of people from overseas. Ticket prices are 50 Rand. You can get tickets from cricket.co.za. Once they get onto Cricket, they can just search for Comedy on Long. And then it's 70 Rand at the door. So if people come through, you'll see some established acts, you'll see some young up-and-coming acts, you'll see some fresh new acts who are open micers. The open micers are always quite exciting because they're just starting out their career, so they always have a very different perspective and a new voice. But yeah, it really is a fantastic show.
Very quickly, there's maybe a budding comedian sitting at home in Cape Town, wants to be part of this. How can he be part of the lineup? How can he get hold of you guys? Very quickly.
Very easy. If any comics out there in Cape Town want to get onto the lineup, come through to the show, watch the show, see what the other comedians are about. I'll have a chat with you. There's other places in Cape Town where I can suggest where they can do open mic spots, so I can actually see them perform live. And then once I've seen them perform live, we can get them onto the lineup. But please, anyone who is new, starting up, established, and hasn't performed in a while, feel free to come through to Iconic Lounge, which is on 164 Long Street. I'll be there, we'll chat, and we'll make things happen.
Okay, Mumsy, thank you very much for joining us from our Cape Town studio, starting a brand new weekly comedy event in Cape Town. All you got to do is follow them on Facebook. We take an ad break. We'll be back after this.